All right, so you start your love of spreadsheets. You're now in your 20s, I assume, mid 20s.
Yeah, and so I left college and moved back to Calgary, Canada.
Okay.
And having been gone there for 3 years, I really wasn't plugged into anybody there. And so what I decided to do was I went to the local regulator in Canada. Each province has its own securities regulation
Mm-hmm.
department.
Hmm.
So here we have the SEC.
Hmm.
In Canada, it's each province has their own one. So I went to what's called the Alberta Securities Commission. And I basically said, I said, I would like to volunteer. I would like to learn what you guys do. And they were so impressed and so taken aback. They said, we can't do that, but we can pay you. So, so I said, sure, if you have to, I'll take your money.
So you're a born
Uh,
salesman too.
but apparently, yeah. And so I spent time sort of learning the ins and outs of some of the securities regulation, and that was an interesting experience to work for the regulator. And they made the mistake of paying me by the hour.
Hmm.
And so I worked a lot of hours, right? But they were very happy with me because I actually probably ended up helping them make a whole bunch of money.
Wow.
We caught a number of securities violations while I was there, and it was from the research that I'd done. So that was a pretty cool experience. I'm
Yeah.
glad that I didn't make a career out of that. That would have been a bit mind-numbing for me, but it was a good place to start.
So and it also became a great thing for your resume.
It was good. Yep. From there, I made the jump to Exxon's Canadian division. It's
Hmm.
called Imperial Oil,
Because of
and
course,
I
what
went
else would you do in Calgary?
exactly. Yeah, the head of the group was a runner, and so he liked to recruit runners. And by the way, we went to the U.S. Corporate Track and Field Championships one year, and I am part of a corporate world record holding team.
There you go.
So there were some benefits. Yeah. But I worked in the natural gas marketing group for a
Okay.
while. And again, my love of spreadsheets served me well because we built spreadsheet models for all of the different wellheads and factoring in the pipeline costs to ship gas to different markets.
Hmm.
And so that was a lot of fun. I really sort of honed my spreadsheet skills doing that. We had some really complicated spreadsheets in those days because natural gas is priced at all kinds of different points all around North America.
Yeah.
And you've got to factor in the cost of shipping the gas to different places and all that. So we were trying to optimize all of that, and I was part of the group that was doing that. But I knew in my heart that I really wasn't that interested in oil and gas. And by the way, if you're not an engineer, it really limits your upward mobility in
Hmm.
that business.
Hmm.
And so that was just a stepping stone for me. And then I had the opportunity to move to the United States and move to Cincinnati. And then make a long story short, I ended up working for a bank there. And the amazing opportunity came about in 1995 when I started working there. Some other people on the team had left, and so I stepped into their shoes and started managing a bunch of mutual funds.
Oh, okay.
And that was in that period when the internet went crazy, and I was managing a large cap growth fund. And so I have an outstanding 5-year track record as a mutual fund manager.
Did you quit in 1999?
I left at the peak in 2000.
Come on, is that right?
Yeah. So that was good. And then from there, I left to start my own investment management firm, wealth management firm,
Oh, okay.
which is what I've been doing since.
Now,
So that was,
how does one make that transition? I mean,
mm,
how do you, since you were working in a bank, you might have had some customers of the bank, or did you partner up, or how did you make that transition?
yeah. So back in those days, the bank, like a lot of banks, custody their own client assets, and we had our own custody group.
Okay.
That wasn't the most efficient, and the tech that they had wasn't that great. So the bank started a little process to see if there are other alternatives, and I was on that team, and there was another guy from the private bank on the team, and he and I basically determined that Charles Schwab was in that business, and Charles Schwab actually would be likely a good partner for us.
Hmm.
We presented our ideas to bank management. They promptly threw our report away. and said, no, we're going to keep our custody group. Thank you very much, for your time. And we said, well, thank you very much. We now know what we can do. And so we left the bank, started our own firm, and custody with Charles Schwab.
Oh, I see. Okay. All
So
right.
it was a little education for us as well that paid off.
Right. So is this something where you needed Charles Schwab to say yes, or is this something which is just like you can automatically do it?
Yeah, Charles Schwab's in the business of providing services to independent advisors, and there were other firms at the time as well that did that.
Mhm.
So yeah, we weren't particularly worried about whether Schwab would accept us or not.
Mhm.
That was basically the business that they were in that at that time, in addition to being in the retail business, which they still are today.
Right. So
Yeah.
then, okay, you're a fledgling wealth management company. Now you need clients. So was one of you a salesman?
The guy from the private bank was the sales guy,
Okay,
and I was focused on doing the research and managing the portfolios.
I got it. Okay, all right.
Yeah.
So
But, we experienced the downside of the dot-com bust,
yeah,
right? And so for the first, 2, 3 years of that business, it was a pretty brutal market. The market dropped 50% at one point.
yeah.
So tough time to be starting a business. It really forced us to figure out how we were going to add value to our clients.
Mhm.
Um, and we kind of morphed from being an investment management shop to being more of a wealth management shop, looking at client situation more holistically, which is appropriate anyway. And so that was a good thing that was necessary in order for us to survive.